this wobbling of the vibrations, this uprising and this downfalling, this pulse and this silence. So, there is a certain sound that arises and a moment in which the sound is felt reduced. In terms of physics, in terms of the physics of sound, they are just crests and troughs, just the hills and valleys. For the eyes of a mystic, they are the formula for the life itself. For the eyes of a witness, they are the dance of the cosmos. Exactly like this wobble. And there's not just but there are so many other things playing in the same sound. There's a subtle and there's many exactly sounding like the insects, the frogs that are sounding, that are shouting, that are singing at this very moment outside. So, at one strike, there are various types of vibrations produced, and exactly like the strike and the silence that was before and afterwards are also the situations of our daily lives. We have seen, we as a human have seen a constant repetition of a bigger cycle. Now that would go really slow than the sound I just played. Imagine if this sound ends in about 10 seconds and all the wobbling of the frequencies of the harmonics of this instrument, of this bowl, finishes within this 10 seconds. And then it requires another strike for the sound to go on. If this sound is extended to say 100 years, each of the frequency would turn out to be one particle of a sound, one identity of the whole sound. Be it on the faster wobble, be it on the slower wobble, an individual identity will be there. And just like these tiny particles, when the sound goes higher in the wah 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 motion, the particle ride the sound and go to the high position. And when the wave, the sound goes lower, the particle goes lower as well. So this theory of sine wave is present not just in the science, but also in the social science, also in the science of each and every individual that is living in this planet right now. And is also true for the planet, as it has its own bigger recurring patterns. Just like our sun goes through 11 years of coronal mass ejection, where the particle of the sun is beamed towards our planet and causes some disturbances. Planet Earth has its own cycles, and one of the visible cycle of our planet is the pole of this planet keeps shifting in certain pattern. So the planet itself is moving in a turmoil. And each and every individual living in this planet at this very moment, breathing, thinking, dreaming, imagining at this very moment, are all rooted in this planet without a choice. As if we sprouted from this planet, which we did, and as if we have our roots very deep into the core of this planet, which it does. Jung's realization of the development of physical body and the development of the psyche of a human, or the psychological aspect of a human being, has arrived side by side together. And just like the cycles of a human body is the cycle of a human psyche, there is a cycle of human psyche in personal level, in the daily personal conscious level, with all your stories, with your families, with your relationships, with your teachers, whoever you know in this earth, the stories that you hold, it has their cycles. And there are deeper stories that has a hold in a society, and that has a bigger cycle. One of those cycle is, and as experienced by a lot of people all around the world, are the archetypal cultural experiences, like the returning of Christmas each year, like the returning of Dasai, Tihar each year, like the returning of seasons each year. All of these are symbolic, and for a set of eyes who is willing to know, willing to learn, willing to experience the existence, these experiences are open, and all it requires is the willingness to accept the stories that the other might hold as the same story that you want others to hold. Others have the same feeling. So the starting should be an open mind to understanding, to receiving what the universe, what this existence gives to each of us. Now, riding in this very wave, riding in this very cosmic wave, there is a very old being in our planet, a very, very old being, very old than each one of us, and probably each of the civilizations humans have been able to record. And this older being is society. The society and the mass consciousness, the society and the collective consciousness has its own cycles, and these cycles run in a longer period of time of around 50, 60 to about 100 years, and the cycle repeats. And this cycle causes a significant moment in humans' history. For example, right now we are facing through pandemic and global mass movements of young people. And if we look back into the history of the world, not long ago we had a civil unrest in the country, and before that, again in few decades back, there was another civil unrest, and again few decades back there was another civil unrest, and so is true for a lot of countries in the world. The global pattern now that we are experiencing, now that we are seeing in this moment, is the accumulation of energy, of the frustration, of the repressions of what we call kuntha, the repressions of emotions, the repressions of energies, gets to release in a collective form once in a while. So actually the poem Ek Yugma Ek Jug Ek Choti Auncha or something like that is very relevant, because each generation grows with a certain idea of life, a certain practice of their own life, and passes. As the new generation grows, they have their new way of life, new forms of life, and the clashes. Clashes because the elder generation lived the way how they lived and find the newer ideas very confusing, very different than their own norms, than their ideas, than their social construct. And the new generation always want to develop, want to add on, want to make reforms. And this is also the pattern that is seen all around the world. In each generation, there is some kind of civil unrest everywhere. So what is this? What are these? What can we do? The eyes of mysticism, the existential eyes, will simply witness the energy. And if this is possible for maximum number of human beings in our planet, for them, if it is possible to witness this longer cycle that goes on in the history of humans, only then it is able to understand this cycle and know exactly what to do, and that is become human, see each other, understand each other's need of their own ways of experiencing their life, their own ways of having stories. It does not mean that how the younger generation lived and their stories is true. That absolutely does not mean that the stories of elder generation is false. And it is not so, because truth is truth for everybody. Every being in this planet experiences truth as their own truth, and their false as their own false. Now the trick is, when they believe something is false, they believe it to be true, that certain something is false. So the truth is true for everybody, and everybody have their own stories, everybody has their own way of thinking, one own way of experiencing this life. So the only midpoint is an open heart, willing to understand, willing to listen. And until that happens, the stories of generations will never be understood. Clashes and conflicts will always prevail. So being a human being, the consciousness of a human being can bring one to this shade, to this Chahari, where you see everyone is a traveler and is resting, and soon someone will take off and walk off. Soon someone will take a new story and leave. Soon someone will arrive and stay for a while. And these are stories of our lives. As the death is very certain, why not experience the life by accepting? And why not experience the life? Why not live the remaining part of life by sharing this acceptance to the world, by sharing this intimate, cosmic, compassionate love with the whole world. And that is slowly happening. It will take more time. It will take more negotiations between generations. It will take more reforming, more experimentations. At the moment, some states in the United States are thinking about defunding the police. Now, that means not having a police organization anymore in a city, and instead turning the fund to city education. Now, those are thoughts that could become reality, that could not become a reality. It's a different story to see, but those are thoughts, a set of thoughts that could shape our future, that could shape a new way humans can experience the life. So people should have a patience. Every people should have a patience, because nobody experiences each other's life. So everyone is required to have patience, and slowly the global restfulness, the global clarity will soon happen. And the global clarity is called Satya Yuga, that it is clear, that it is true everywhere. So there will be turmoil, there will be many more turmoils to go through. There will be many people coming up with ideas, many communities coming up with different ideas that will soon become global ideas and make reforms. Just like the idea of Black Lives Matter came into someone's mind from the societal experience. Then, now that idea traveled all around the world. And it is not just the Black Lives Matter anymore, but it is a statement of enough for younger generation and enough for the societal system of racial discriminations. Unfortunately, still today there exists a very deep-rooted social discrimination all around the world in many forms. And the newer generation simply sees that as nonsense. So, what happens is a generation has realized a lot of things that was in the past and is not needed now in the current situation of the world. So the newer generation, when they get old, if the things do not change in this generation, in the next generation, the ideas transmit and it becomes natural. Then a new set of thoughts, new set of ideas, a new set of lifestyle, a new set of societal experience will happen. And anyways, civil reforms or civilization advancing or development of a society, whatever case may be given, it requires a few generations to go through the complete change. Now, after the industrial revolution in the world, in the Western world, the Western world rapidly started changing and its effect seen all around the world. And in Nepal, we did not have to go through all the things the Western world went through to go through the industrial era, industrial revolution, and then now the digital era. So the people in Nepal had to go directly from agricultural based society to a lot of them directly towards the internet based digital society. And the modern generation are with the digital based society, internet based society, which means it's a global society. They have news, they have contents, they have stories, they have religion, they have rituals, they have everything a society have from all around the world have access to the things from all around the world, which was simply not possible a generation ago. And this is true all around the world. It was simply not possible a generation ago for the internet and its wonders. Now the modern age, the millennial, the boomers, all of them, their mind is different. Their way of thinking could be different than the way of thinking of a generation earlier, varying on various factors. And likewise, the generation that is now getting birth, now growing up, will have a different idea, will have a different access to the world. And likewise, it will take a few generations more for the whole idea of racial discrimination to end from the society. The whole idea of political reforms and societal reforms to get implemented in the societies, and also because it is the idea and the experiment of the ideas on how the society advances itself. First, communism was an idea, then someone took it for seriously and developed a society in base of those ideas. And likewise to any form of isms, Hinduism or Christianism or Islamism, any ism, modernism, atheism, any ism or any logic. So these isms and these logis do their own experiments, and it takes time, which is why everyone requires to have a compassionate patience to see how everything progresses, and as a responsible individual also take responsibility with one's all the emotions and also all the emotions of other beings that lives, that exists. And after all, it is just like the wobble of the singing bowl. Just like this. It is the sound and the silence, the sound and the silence, the peace, the unrest, the war, the truce. And this is the cycle that goes all around the world. And this cycle sees no time, no space. And this is why the existence was termed as Nada Brahma, or the whole cosmos is vibrating. It is a pulsation of existing and non-existing, the hill and the valley, the crest and the trough. So when there is the freedom of speech, at least in the constitutions in many countries of the world, whenever you are raising your voice towards what you think is good for the society, what you think is good for the world and for each individual, have this constant witness within you that restfully sees whatever goes on around. Because whenever the turmoil from the outside enters within you, it becomes your turmoil, it becomes your experience. So the natural way is to not let the turmoil from outside enter within you. And only way to do that is witness to whatever goes around with you. And that means also becoming mindful, and that means also becoming one with yourself, in peace with yourself. So there is a difficult path for many different people, because these are the only superficial maps that one would take, but there is the different story for different people to go to different part in the map. And while the cosmic consciousness is same, while the collective consciousness is same, actually the modern protests and riots around the world is one of such parts, one of such events. It's a collective consciousness. There are many stories. Whichever way we take, whichever way we think, actually are just stories. Because whatever the story be, we are where we are how we are when we are. And the elderly generation are at their elderly age at this moment, at this point. And some of us are in the middle ages at this point, and some young people at this point in their young ages, so to be children and babies. And this is just like the shorter wobble, and the longer wobbles, or the faster, it just wobbles. It just wobbles of the societal story. Become a witness, my beloved. Witness to this existential phenomenon. And only by witnessing all the stories, and only by being able to accept all the stories from everybody, there is a possibility of global peace. A key of accepting everything with ease is required to arrive to this restfulness, to this feeling that I can rest completely in you at this moment, and let my body go, let my mind go. So it is for humans a requirement to come into this restfulness with each other, and unless that, there is always some form of turmoil. So like I said, these are the maps, and the stories could be different in your life, in your situation, but the maps are similar. And the maps are similar because these maps are the psyche Jung was talking about. The psyche has its own characters, and the characters are the maps. Maps of a personal life, maps of a social life, maps of a personal consciousness, social consciousness, of the global consciousness. And when you are able to see the stories from both sides, all you can do is smile, because you don't know what to do. Because whichever side you are going to choose, you are going to become enemy of someone or the other. Which is why the sadhus, the sannyasins, the yogis, Buddhas, they are in the middle path. They never choose sides. And not just that, they don't want to be in the sides, but because due to the vision that both sides need to exist for the societal gain to exist, for the societal experience, for the society, for this being that was called society to exist. Games will go on anyways. There will be dark, there will be white, there will be day, there will be night, there will be duality. And there will be duality without any form of discrimination. There will be duality as seen as that there is duality. And that just also means acceptance. Just you see what is. So we can add many stories in our conversation of generations, races, And racism actually only ends when one gets completely naked with one's own stories. Well, in other words, one is able to see one's own story entirely from the moment of one's birth, which is possible, to this very moment here and now. So whichever is one be, if it is able to, if he or she is able to witness here and now, from the moment of birth, all the stories drop. And when all the stories drop, none of us are any better than monkeys or chimpanzees, because we are also just experiencing our life, having a part, having a time in this planet as every other animals and beings. So we are not at that special level as we humans used to think. And by coming into that terms also, there's nothing left to do but witness and laugh and just share giggles. But then humans would get bored pretty soon and they'll start to find something to create a false enemy, which will soon become a true enemy, and the war will begin again. And humans will soon get bored and they'll require competitions, and which will soon again bring to a state of conflict. Which is why we are still in a monkey state, a monkey that can think, that's all. This much for today.